I was chosen to be the Crown Prince's bride at the age of 3 to bring him good fortune, and thus entered the Eastern Palace. On our wedding night, the Crown Prince slept on the outer side of the bed while I slept on the inner side. I nudged him and asked, "Brother Crown Prince, can we have the wet nurse sleep between us?" The Crown Prince turned his head to stare at me and said, "No." I sighed, turned around, and began gnawing on the meat bone hidden in my sleeve. Just as I was grinding my teeth, he turned me back to face him, staring at my greasy little face. I extended the meat bone toward him. "You can have a lick if you want. They say the Crown Prince has been ill for a long time and hasn't eaten meat in ages. He must be craving it." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. After my parents passed away, my uncle's family moved into the general's mansion under the pretense of taking care of me, seized the Qin family's property, and raised me to be frail and timid. When the imperial palace sought a sacrificial crown princess for the sickly crown prince, my aunt pushed me forward, trading my life for their family's noble status as imperial relatives. The royal family merely needed a crown princess with an auspicious fate for the burial. Naturally, they didn't care that I was only 3 years old and couldn't even step over the threshold of the grand hall by myself. On the wedding day, I tripped while climbing the threshold, fell flat on my face, and became the laughingstock of many. "She's so silly, didn't even use her hands to protect her head and face when she fell. What a pity for General Qin's family, a lineage of loyal martyrs, only to leave behind such a fool." That night, the Crown Prince shook his head as I pulled a meat bone from my sleeve. "So you let your face hit the ground during the day just to protect this meat bone?" I beamed with pride. "Isn't it clever or what? What's a face compared to a meaty bone?" Ever since my parents passed, I couldn't even get egg custard with meat. Today, taking advantage of the grand wedding, I finally managed to snatch a meaty bone from the kitchen. The Crown Prince watched me gnawing noisily, anger flashing in his eyes. I didn't know why he was angry, only remembering what my wet nurse, the last person who still protected me, had said. I mustn't make him angry. I handed over the meaty bone, and won't eat this anymore. "You have it. Now that you've eaten my meaty bone, you can't stay mad at me." But the Crown Prince's face darkened as he went out to give some instructions. After a while, a bowl of steamed egg custard topped with minced meat was brought in. "Eat up." It had been so long since I'd had such delicious steamed egg custard with minced meat. I ate until my little belly was round and full, only remembering to share with the Crown Prince when there were 2 spoonfuls left. I pushed the bowl toward him, my face full of reluctance. "You have it, you have it." Seeing the remaining 2 bites of custard and my head that kept sneaking glances despite being turned away, the Crown Prince pushed the bowl back and called for water to be fetched. The obedient eunuch gaped in astonishment, peering inside for a long moment before finally bringing water in shocked silence. "Your Highness, she's only 3 years old. Get out." The Crown Prince, face dark with anger, drove everyone out and personally fetched a cloth to wash my face and hands. He carried the scent of medicine about him, smelling just like the fragrance that clung to Mother. Mother said father and uncles often get injured at the border, which requires a lot of medicinal herbs. So she started a herb business to provide the best medicine for father. "Big brother Crown Prince, you remind me of my mother." "Big brother Crown Prince, they say when you die, I have to sleep in the same coffin with you. Can we go sleep in my parents' coffin instead? My parents sleep together, and I want to sleep with them too." Adding, "You wouldn't make them mind, I'm sure." I messed up, and the Crown Prince cried. He said when he dies, I'm not allowed to sleep in his coffin. I asked if I could sleep in my parents' coffin instead, but he said no to that too. Then where am I supposed to go? After my parents passed, I lost my home. If the Crown Prince were to leave too, where would I go? The next day, my wet nurse held me and cried too, saying she would be my home, that she would stay with me, even in death. The Crown Prince took me to see the Empress, his mother. His mother was breathtakingly beautiful, like a figure from a painting. Seeing me looking around, she waved me over to sit and even handed me some pastries from the table. "Little Yuan, eat up." I hadn't had any pastries since Mother left, so I savored this rare treat, taking small, careful bites. After a couple of bites, I suddenly remembered something. Hopping off my seat, I ran up to the Crown Prince and said, You have some too, since he's sick and can't eat bones. Surely he can have some pastries, right? The queen was momentarily taken aback, then smiled at him. Her temperament is just like her parents, both excellent. The crown prince wiped my mouth for me. I won't eat any, Anan can have them. Don't worry, no one will snatch them from you. I returned to my seat, nibbling slowly while eyeing the remaining pastries on the table. The queen ordered everything to be packed up for me to take back and enjoy slowly. I smiled at her, revealing a row of little white teeth. A young boy beside her kept staring at me. What a glutton, always thinking about food. How unfortunate for my royal brother to marry such a stinky little girl. I glared at him. Anan isn't little anymore. Anan is old enough to get married. The little boy made a face at me and ran up to me. He's so tall, a whole head taller than me. I looked up and could only see his chin. He said smugly, "What does a little brat like you know about marriage?" I retorted confidently, "Of course I know. Marriage means sleeping together, being buried together when you die. Sharing the same coffin, just like my parents did." The little boy wanted to say more, but the queen dragged him back and covered his mouth. "Yongcheng, don't disrespect your sister-in-law," Yongcheng wailed. "What kind of sister-in-law is this little brat?" Woo-woo. The crown prince was the eldest prince, while Yongcheng was the fifth prince. The fifth prince didn't like me. Every morning he would rise early to study, come running to the Eastern Palace, wake me up, and insist I go study with him. "You're the crown princess. How can you be illiterate? This prince began his education at 3, and you're almost 4. Come on, let's go study." He forced me to sit at the desk, where I was made to listen to the tutor drone on with classical texts. I fell asleep after just a short while. The tutor stared at me and sighed. His Highness the Crown Prince was exceptionally bright since childhood. He could recite the Analects by age 2. He was the late Emperor's most favored grandson. If not for his grave illness, he wouldn't have been matched with such a young and foolish child as his principal consort. When I woke up, the princes around me were all laughing at me. A little brat like her becoming the crown princess. Ha ha ha, what a joke. On the wedding day, she even tripped over the threshold and fell flat on her face. Look at that dumb expression of hers, even drooling. I looked up, wiped the drool from my mouth, and stared at them blankly. "Hello, big brothers." The people around suddenly fell silent. Someone muttered under their breath, "Looks pretty good though." What a little fool. The second prince, only a few days younger than the crown prince, was already capable of leading troops and had gone to fight in the southern borderlands, so he wasn't in the schoolroom. The third and fourth princes were about the same age, slightly older than the fifth prince. The two of them sat together, leaving a space in the middle, and beckoned me to join them. Hugging my little pillow, I obediently went over. They studied with their arms resting by their books, while I lay on my pillow, listening for a while and dozing off for a while. They secretly tugged at my little braid and touched my outstretched hand. Yongcheng scolded me from behind, calling me heartless, and stopped talking to me. After school, I walked alone. "Go back to the Eastern Palace by yourself, Page. Let's see if you can find your way back." I stood at the school gate, unsure which way to go. The third prince grabbed my hand, saying, "Come with me, I'll take you to play." He brought me back to the Palace of Eternal Joy and even gave me pastries to eat. His mother, Consort Rong, came over and frowned when she saw me sitting at the desk. Why did Yanga bring this jinx here? What terrible luck. I fled from the Palace of Eternal Joy, running wildly down the broad palace avenue with no idea where to go. I am a jinx. After my parents passed, my uncle's family came and called me a jinx, saying I'd brought death upon the whole household, warning everyone to stay away from me. I couldn't understand what they were saying, only that I was the one who caused my parents' death. The crown prince sent someone to bring me back. I hid in a corner of the grand hall, not daring to get too close to him. He pointed at the table and said, "Come eat, there's steamed egg with minced pork, your favorite. It's good that you know you were wrong. I've already punished Yongcheng, and you mustn't run off like that again." His men went to fetch me but couldn't find me. When they learned I'd gone to the Palace of Eternal Joy, they rushed over and found me there, barefoot and trembling with fear. But I still didn't dare approach, resting my head on my arms as I cautiously asked, "Brother Crown Prince, they say I caused my parents' death and will surely cause yours too. You should just abandon me." They say I was married here to accompany the crown prince in death. Would the crown prince die because I married him? If I hadn't come, would the crown prince still be alive? He was the first person, after my parents passed away and aside from my wet nurse, who treated me well, gave me food, and even shared half of his bed with me. I didn't want him to die. The crown prince's eyes darkened, and he suddenly began to cough violently. Who told you these things? I saw blood dripping from between his fingers and, frightened, rushed over to pat his back. The crown prince held out his hands, watching me pour tea and fetch a handkerchief. His eyes filled with heartache. Yuan, this name was given by me, hoping you would be joyful and safe. You are a lucky star. How could you be an ill omen? You haven't harmed anyone, nor will you harm anyone. Don't listen to the nonsense of outsiders. At night, when I was asleep, he gently touched my face and whispered, I will ensure your lifelong happiness, and I would never let you be buried alive with me. Rest assured. He thought I didn't hear, but I did, though I didn't quite understand what buried alive meant. The next day, when the fifth prince came, he cautiously apologized to me. I'm sorry, I'll never be willful again, nor will I ever leave you behind. I refused to go to school with him again, watching as he left with tears in his eyes. In the afternoon, while playing in the garden, I encountered Consort Rome once more. The attendants she brought were carrying food boxes, staring at me coldly. What a scourge! I later learned that on that very day, the fifth prince got into a fight with the third prince at the Imperial Academy. Both were reported to the emperor by their tutor and punished accordingly. Consort Rome loathed me to the core and suggested to the emperor that I should be made to observe vegetarian fasts and chant Buddhist sutras to purify myself while praying for the crown prince's well-being. The emperor granted permission. The empress brought her attendants to see me and personally accompanied me to the Buddhist prayer hall, watching my tiny figure kneeling before the Buddha, following the etiquette matron sent by Consort Rome in performing kowtows. She couldn't help but flush with anger. This is utter nonsense. How could a mere 3-year-old child understand such things? Why must she already abstain from meat and chant Buddhist prayers? She went and had a fierce argument with the emperor, demanding to take me under her personal care. Yuan is my daughter-in-law, so naturally, I should be the one to teach her. The emperor coldly rejected her request. The noble consort also has the crown prince's best interests at heart. Could it be that the empress doesn't wish for the crown prince to be healthy and assist me sooner? The empress angrily retorted, the crown prince's health is the concern of the imperial physicians. What need is there for a 3-year-old child to be involved in such matters? The emperor directly ordered the empress to return and reflect on her faults, saying it was her own lack of virtue that had caused the crown prince's frail health. The crown prince should be sharing my burdens and undertaking the responsibilities of the state. It's because the empress lacks virtue and has a woman's soft-heartedness that she has brought this weakness upon him. With this, even the empress was punished and burdened with the heavy accusation of harming her own son, making Consort Rome even more triumphant. The matron she sent to watch over me held her head even higher, looking at me with contempt as if she had accomplished some grand feat. I stared at her, and she said coldly, instead of looking at the Buddha statue, why is the crown princess staring at a lowly servant? I shook my head. You're more interesting. You remind me of the big rooster in my backyard. When that rooster wins a fight against an old hen, it struts around the yard with its head held high just like you. It never won against other roosters, only hens. The old matron froze, her face flushing red with anger. Such sharp words for one so young, to mock me as a rooster, and to say I only fight hens. She said I was mocking her for bullying the weak and fearing the strong, so I asked Nanny what bullying the weak and fearing the strong meant. Nanny didn't dare answer either, so she secretly sewed padding into the knees of my clothes to prevent them from getting ruined from kneeling. But those knee pads never got used, because instead of making me kneel, they held me down and spanked me. The fifth prince got into another fight with the third prince, and this time he broke the third prince's head. The emperor punished the fifth prince, but also reprimanded the third prince. You're 3 years older than Yongcheng, yet you couldn't even defeat him and came crying to complain. How could I have such a useless son like you? The entire palace was gossiping about how useless the third prince was, unable to even defeat a child. The noble consort Rome was furious and found an excuse to give me a beating. The crown prince stepped forward to shield me, saying, "Imperial consort, why not strike me down as well?" Consort Rome left in a huff, saying, "Your Highness, the crown prince should focus on recuperating and refrain from meddling in others' affairs, lest your health deteriorates further. Her Majesty the Empress and the crown princess are both praying for your well-being," she muttered under her breath. Calling us sickly wretches and harbingers of doom, the crown prince pretended not to hear, secretly bringing me meat pies to eat, and scolded the fifth prince once again. "If you're angry, is hitting someone the only way you know how to vent, and so blatantly at that, after 2 fights? Have you learned absolutely nothing?" The fifth prince wiped his tears. "If it weren't for that woman and her son, Mother Empress, and that wretched girl wouldn't have been punished, I couldn't swallow my anger. I'm just a child, children fight all the time, even Father Emperor can't do anything about it." The crown prince pointed at me and said, "Father Emperor may not do anything to you, but you've implicated Yuan, because he got into a fight. I was the one punished to eat vegetarian food and chant Buddhist scriptures." The fifth prince was instantly overwhelmed with guilt. "But I can't bear it, elder brother. Are we just going to swallow this insult in silence?" The crown prince wiped the crumbs from the corner of my mouth, his gaze tender as water, who said revenge must be a grand spectacle. He murmured, "On my 5th day in the Buddhist hall, the crown prince suddenly coughed up blood and fell gravely ill. The imperial physicians knelt in a row, yet none could clearly explain how to treat the illness. The illness this time struck with such ferocity that many believed the crown prince might not survive. Her Majesty the Queen had reddened eyes. Weeping with choked sobs, the crown prince, in his illness, called only my name, wishing for my return to see him. Yuan is the name I gave her. She is bound to me by fate. I wish to see her." The Queen quarreled fiercely with the Emperor again, and this time even His Majesty could no longer oppose her. Having no choice but to order my release, the crown prince was renowned for his intelligence since childhood, being the late Emperor's most beloved grandson. It's said that it was precisely because of him that the late Emperor passed the throne to the current Emperor. If not for the crown prince's sudden illness, he should now be radiating confidence and vigor in the imperial court. The Emperor didn't come to visit him, merely sighing deeply with his ministers, lamenting what a fine young man he was. To those court officials who suggested changing the heir apparent, the Emperor simply waved his hand and said the matter could be discussed later. But years later, even as I recalled these events, I could understand that the Emperor had already given up on the crown prince. He wanted to appoint a new heir, yet he didn't wish to appear too heartless or indifferent. That's why he chose a sacrificial crown princess for the prince, allowing the courtiers to debate the new heir while making no move to stop them. His pretense was truly poorly executed. Kneeling by the bedside, I held my elder brother the crown prince's hand. Feeling it alternate between cold and feverish, he patted my head and had someone bring me a bowl of minced meat and egg custard. "Eat, don't worry, this illness will pass in a couple of days." I didn't want to eat. Everyone said he was going to die, yet he still lied to me. I don't want him to die. Death is not good at all, and he didn't lie to me. After 2 days, his condition actually improved. The first thing he did after getting better was to accompany me for meals. If the crown prince doesn't recover soon, our little Yuan refuses to eat and will waste away from hunger. It turned out that someone had discovered witchcraft artifacts in Consort Rome's Palace of Eternal Joy, a remarkably lifelike clay figurine dressed in identical clothing to the crown prince, with the prince's birthdate written in blood on its back and needles piercing its body. The palace most abhorred such witchcraft practices. The emperor was furious and ordered a thorough investigation. Consort Rome was confined within the Palace of Eternal Joy, with no one permitted to enter or leave. She cried out her innocence, swearing she would never commit such an act, but at this moment, no one would plead for her or come to her aid. Right after that clay figurine was destroyed, the crown prince miraculously recovered from his illness, which precisely proved he had fallen victim to witchcraft. The emperor decided to banish Consort Rome to the cold palace and ordered the third prince to enter monastic life at a temple, praying for the crown prince's well-being as atonement. Even Consort Rome's family was implicated, as the emperor vowed to thoroughly investigate whether they had also participated in this affair. But at this very moment, the second prince returned from the southern frontier and personally pleaded for mercy on behalf of the third prince and consort Rong in the Grand Hall. Father, during my campaign to subdue the Nanjiao tribes in the southern frontier, I discovered that these so-called witchcraft incidents were nothing but fabrications. The timing of these events is far too coincidental. It's likely the work of someone with ulterior motives. I am willing to exchange my military merits for a pardon for noble consort. I beg your majesty to show leniency and reopen the investigation to restore justice for her. He even pulled the third prince down to kneel with him, saying, "Third brother is still young, how could he endure the austere life of a monastery? Moreover, he has always revered your majesty and the crown prince. How could he possibly commit such an act against human decency?" His display of fraternal devotion moved the emperor deeply. He once again requested recognition for his military merits. And the emperor, unwilling to disappoint a loyal subject, agreed to send someone to thoroughly investigate the matter. When the empress came to visit the crown prince, she couldn't help but sneer upon hearing this news. What a fine display of brotherly affection, how conveniently timed. Leaning against the headboard, the crown prince sipped his medicine and smiled weakly. Second brother has finally stepped into the open. Isn't this just perfect? I was playing cat's cradle nearby, completely unable to understand what they were talking about. Only later did I realize that the intrigues in the palace and the imperial court ran much deeper than they appeared. After several days of thorough investigation, it was discovered that the clay figurine had been made by an old eunuch, who deliberately buried it in consort Rong's palace to frame her. This old servant once took a liking to a palace maid. She had already agreed to form a companionship with me. But the empress sent her out of the palace, leaving me with neither the person nor the money. This old servant is filled with hatred. Back then, when my family was gravely ill, I begged the empress for some silver to save them, but she refused to give even a single tael, claiming the crown prince's illness required funds everywhere. I could only watch as my family perished. He only admitted to making the clay figurine to harm the crown prince, but never explained why he framed consort Rong before biting off his tongue and dying. Soon, the old eunuch's testimony spread throughout the imperial court and the rear palace. Everyone said it was because the empress was cruel and ungrateful that the crown prince became seriously ill, and now her actions had nearly cost him his life. In this witchcraft incident, consort Rong was innocent, the second prince was virtuous. While the only victims, the crown prince and the empress, became objects of public scorn, everyone whispered behind their backs, saying they lacked virtue, were too cruel, petty, and selfish, and thus deserved retribution. Some even said the crown prince's position should be changed, that the current heir merely held the title by seniority, his character utterly unworthy of the throne. While playing in the garden, I encountered the newly released third prince, who spat at me in disdain. "You stupid fool, you won't be the crown princess for much longer." Consort Rong never regained her position as noble consort because she failed to maintain strict discipline, and her elder brother was found guilty of corruption, stripped of his official post, which led to her demotion to the rank of concubine. Meanwhile, the mother of the second prince, the previously low-profile concubine Qi, was promoted 2 ranks and ennobled as noble consort, all thanks to her outstanding son. The emperor announced this during a banquet celebrating the victory in the southern borderlands. The former noble consort Rong, now concubine Rong, clenched her handkerchief tightly, unable to hide her resentment. She ought to thank the second prince's mother, but no matter who it was, being demoted from noble consort to concubine and seeing someone else take her former position would surely leave one resentful. At this moment, concubine Qi stepped forward and knelt at the center of the hall. "Your Majesty, Yonglin has been taught by Your Majesty and the tutors since childhood." This humble consort merely concerned herself with trivial matters like clothing and meals, hardly deserving of any credit. Yonglin's achievements this time are also due to Your Majesty's boundless grace and heaven's blessing upon great Ju. This consort is of shallow learning and feels utterly ashamed when compared to Her Majesty the Empress and the other sisters. "I am unworthy of the noble consort position and beg Your Majesty to revoke the decree." Concubine Qi kept her head bowed, humble and trembling with apprehension. The emperor was quite pleased and granted her the rank of consort, no longer insisting on making her an imperial noble consort. She still felt somewhat apprehensive, but seeing that further insistence might anger the emperor, she didn't press the matter. When she rose and glanced at Consort Roang, her face was still full of apology. Consort Roang smiled, all traces of her earlier embarrassment now completely gone. The emperor then gave further instructions, saying the concubines should learn from the current consort Qi, especially certain individuals who must not be too selfish and harsh. The empress's face darkened. These words were clearly directed at her, but she had never even met that eunuch, let alone had any eunuch come to borrow silver from her. As I gnawed on a large pork knuckle, watching this drama unfold, I found the adult's behavior increasingly bizarre, so full of feints and half-truths. The crown prince wiped my mouth and took me back after the banquet. The empress was still indignant. Such a shoddy act, yet we have to play along with them. The fifth prince looked bewildered. Clearly, it was eldest brother who suffered this time, yet there's not even a hint of compensation. Instead, second brother gets all the glory. If eldest brother hadn't fallen ill, that merit should have been his. Even though the crown prince had been gravely ill and nearly lost his life, the empress was reprimanded, and even the crown prince himself was ordered to copy Buddhist scriptures to cultivate his character. The crown prince merely smiled. The current situation couldn't be better. Some people have finally stepped into the open, saving us the trouble of rooting them out one by one. Drowsy, I lay slumped over my wet nurse. As he tucked my cloak more securely around me, he said with a chuckle, "Yongcheng, remember, when judging people, don't just look at what they say or do, look at what they gain." Because the second prince had distinguished himself in service, and because Consort Qi was of noble character, the emperor visited her palace many times in succession. But at that time, Consort Roang fell ill, and the emperor still went to see her, comforting her for several days. Because I was young, the palace maids and eunuchs never bothered to lower their voices around me, which allowed me to overhear many interesting things. They all said the emperor still favored Consort Roang more. Even though he had demoted her in rank, he bestowed many gifts upon her and continued to dote on her. Even when some high-ranking officials at court proposed replacing the crown prince with the second prince, the emperor refused. Some said he still preferred the third prince and wanted to wait until he was older before changing the heir. So, despite her demotion, Consort Roang remained quite smug. The queen took me to play in the garden, where we encountered her. She still held her head high, her gaze toward the queen filled with hatred. "Sister Empress, you used your own son to frame me, yet failed to crush me completely. I bet it keeps you up at night, doesn't it?" The queen wouldn't even look at her. "Keep your blind foolishness far from me. I fear prolonged exposure might make me as stupid as you." She waved her hand as if swatting a fly. Consort Roang's face turned livid with anger, yet she remained haughty. "Sister Empress, when you first entered the palace, you were pitilessly elegant, as proud as the celestial maiden of the ninth heaven. How is it that now you dare to act but not admit? Has the matter with the crown prince stripped you of all your dignity?" Smack. The empress rose abruptly and slapped her across the face. "Consort Roang, use your brain for once. See clearly who actually benefits from this play." With those words, the empress turned and left, yet Consort Roang went straight to the emperor to lodge complaints, spreading everywhere how the empress abused her power to bully others. Soon, rumors flooded both the imperial court and the inner palace that the empress, driven to fury by the crown prince's prolonged illness, was growing increasingly volatile in temper. The rumors and gossip grew louder, until even I heard much of it. I argued with those wagging tongues. "Her Majesty the Empress has the gentlest temper, she would never lose it." "You're all talking nonsense, utter nonsense. The Empress is the kindest, she would never lose her temper." I argued with people, chasing after them and shouting, but no one paid me any attention. I had just turned 4 years old, with no family left, and was married into the Eastern Palace as a joy-bringing bride. Everyone treated me like a little fool who might die at any moment. Not worth their concern. They didn't dare provoke me either, only avoiding me. Running too fast, I tripped and fell face-first into the dirt. Concubine Qi happened to pass by and picked me up. "Poor little thing, how did you end up falling here? Come, auntie will take you to have some sweets." Concubine Chi brought me back to Weiyang Palace, gave me pastries and sweets to eat, and even stuffed the remaining ones into my pouch. She had someone change me into clean clothes and redo my hair. The second prince also came and sat across from me, watching. He spoke to me kindly, but I was terrified of him. His gaze was different from both Crown Prince brother and the fifth prince. He asked if I knew about the Qin army. I froze for a moment, then shook my head. He frowned. That was the hard work of 2 generations of your grandfathers. How could you not know any of this? His voice wasn't loud, but it carried disdain, the exact tone my uncle would use, one I recognized all too well. I jumped down from the chair. Thank you for the pastries, Your Highness. Yuan must be going now. With that, I ran off, hearing the second prince remark from behind, not only foolish but also lacking manners. Consort Chi said a few words to him, but I couldn't quite make out what they were. When I returned to the Eastern Palace, Crown Prince and fifth prince were already waiting for me to have dinner. I took out the pastries and candies from my pouch and honestly admitted they were given by Consort Chi. Fifth prince snorted coldly, ungrateful wretch. Did we starve you, eating random things outside? Oh, the Crown Prince gave him a slap on the head. Stop talking nonsense. To me, however, he was all smiles. Does Yuan like Consort Chi? I shook my head. It's not that I don't like her. But I don't particularly like her either. I couldn't quite explain it, but I just felt that Consort Chi wasn't the same as what people outside said about her. Everyone says Consort Chi is virtuous and noble, praising her generosity and humility, claiming the second prince has the demeanor of a true gentleman. Yet, for some reason, I can't bring myself to like them. The sight of them fills me with fear, making me want to flee. The fifth prince stared at me intently but covered his mouth, not daring to say another word. The Crown Prince patted my head gently. Yuan, sometimes you must trust your instincts when judging people. If you don't like someone, keep your distance, but don't voice it aloud. Learn to protect yourself, understand? I nodded fiercely. If I don't like them, I won't go near them. Never again. The fifth prince finally couldn't hold back anymore. Elder brother, you always lecture me about observing people with my eyes, listening with my ears, and pondering with my heart. How troublesome. But when it comes to this girl, she only needs to trust her intuition. He thought this was utterly unfair. The Crown Prince looked at him helplessly. That's because you simply have no intuition. The fifth prince puffed his cheeks and muttered under his breath. Where would a little girl like her even get intuition from? Isn't it just indulging her, letting her like or dislike things as she pleases? After dinner, I took a stroll and then climbed onto the bed to rest, when suddenly I remembered something and hurriedly shook my elder brother, the Crown Prince, awake again. He habitually patted me. Has Yuan had a nightmare? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I shook my head. His Highness the second prince asked me if I knew about the Qin family's army. After I finished speaking, the Crown Prince's eyes narrowed. What did Yuan say? I shook my head. Never heard of it. But with the character Qin in it, it must be related to father, right? Actually, I'm not stupid at all. I know many things. The Crown Prince smiled approvingly. Our Yuan is truly clever. It is indeed related to you. But Yuan doesn't need to know now. Your elder brother will handle everything and give Yuan a bright future. After speaking, I went back to sleep. These matters were beyond my understanding, and there was nothing I could do about them anyway. And after that, I encountered Consort Chi several more times. She invited me to Weiyang Palace to play and even said she had made pastries for me. Poor thing, so thin and frail, yet destined for burial sacrifice. Ah, what a sin! Every time she saw me, her eyes would redden as she lamented my pitiful state. As if I were about to die the next second, I went back and told the Crown Prince, who said I could go if I wanted to, eat and leave without needing to say much. He seemed to have recovered somewhat and was already able to attend court, even taking on some assignments. However, those tasks were all quite difficult, thankless, and always left him looking exhausted. Not wanting to bother him too often, I occasionally went to Consort Chi's place for some pastries. I listen to whatever she says. When she cries, I cry. When she laughs, I laugh. She gives me embroidered pouches, handkerchiefs, and bracelets. I accept them all without refusal. Her daughter, Princess Huaguang, often keeps us company. Princess Huaguang was 5 years older than me. with a delicate and refined appearance, much like Consort Chi. However, the way she looked at me was far more unrestrained, often laced with disdain and scorn. Consort Chi would frequently give her a light tap and shake her head, at which point she would finally rein it in a little. She would also give me gifts, claiming they were the finest things she herself couldn't bear to part with. Every time they gave me something, it was with the condescending air of charity. After my uncle and aunt entered our home, my cousin would casually toss me her used belongings, always with that same look in her eyes. Occasionally, the second prince would visit too. Though he remained kind to me, his gaze still held that same contempt, as if looking at a fool. They didn't know I wasn't that stupid. The crown prince had always said I was the cleverest. The things they give me, I might as well take, it'd be a waste not to. As for what they say, I turn around and tell the crown prince everything. I'm plenty clever. Time in the palace passed both quickly and slowly. Before I knew it, over a year had gone by, and I was already 5 years old. At this time, the emperor also fell ill. The imperial physician said it was due to prolonged overwork. The emperor wasn't actually very old, but in his youth, he had fought with his brothers for the throne, suffered assassination attempts, poisonings, and injuries, which had ruined his health. His illness only made the court officials clamor even louder for him to appoint a new crown prince. Elder brother's actions were clearly for the benefit of the nation and its people, yet because he offended those powerful aristocratic families, he's been slandered and collectively attacked in court. The fifth prince was furious, venting his indignation while having dinner with me. The crown prince has been very busy lately and can't join me for every meal, so he sent the fifth prince to keep me company during dinners. As I ate, I listened to his complaints. Second brother is going to marry the granddaughter of the chief grand secretary as his principal consort. The chief grand secretary is the leader of the civil officials. By marrying her, most of the civil officials will side with him, with both military achievements and the chief grand secretary's support. Second brother must be feeling quite pleased with himself. Finally, the fifth prince couldn't help but sigh. If only crown prince brother would also marry the daughter of a civil official as his consort. Perhaps. He didn't finish his sentence, glanced at me, swallowed his words, and went back to eating in silence. Don't you dare tell eldest brother what I just said. I lifted my head from the bowl and nodded firmly at him. Don't worry, I had made my promise. Yet these words still reached the crown prince's ears. If I didn't speak, others would. The secret guards protecting us would report everything. He forbade the fifth prince from dining with me again. What nonsense have you been telling, Yuan? Only useless men rely on women to balance power, to prevent others from filling my head with such matters again. No matter how busy he was, he would always join me for meals. As the new year approached, he asked me where I wanted to go for fun. During the holiday, we could take a few days off. He had time and could take me out. After some thought, I said, I'd like to go home for a visit. He was surprised but still nodded. I'll go with you, brother. Elder brother the crown prince didn't have anyone announce our arrival, taking me straight home. Uncle didn't expect me to return and was visibly flustered. Your Highness, why have you come without sending word ahead? The crown prince snorted coldly. Does the crown princess need to announce her return home? Minister Qin, don't forget this is the general's residence. You were merely temporary caretakers during her childhood, not the masters. The fifth prince chimed in from behind. Exactly. Do we need to announce our visit when accompanying our sister-in-law back to her maiden home? He peered into the room. Are you hosting guests? Who's here? The uncle grew even more flustered, stammering that it was just a colleague. The fifth prince paid no heed to such concerns, pulling me along as he insisted on seeing my courtyard. Auntie grew even more flustered, saying, that courtyard hasn't been lived in for ages and hasn't been cleaned. It's covered in dust and not worth seeing. Why don't we just sit in the front hall instead? I ignored them all, taking the crown prince's hand as I marched inside, when my uncle and aunt tried to stop us. They were blocked by the palace guards. The further we walked inside, the more nervous my uncle and aunt became. When we reached the front of my courtyard, I stopped in my tracks because the yard looked completely different from how I remembered it. Where's my tree, my swing set, and those stone carvings? They're all gone. I ran into the courtyard, searching everywhere. but couldn't find anything familiar anymore. The tree was planted by Father himself when I was born, he said when I married. He'd cut it down to make my wedding bed. The swing frame was also tied by Father, who promised to push me on it, and those small stone carvings placed in the courtyard, he chiseled them piece by piece at the frontier and sent them home, saying they would protect my safety. But Father never lived to see me marry, never pushed my swing, and couldn't even keep his promise to protect me anymore. I rushed into the house, only to be slapped across the face. What lowly wretch dares barge into my room? It was my cousin's sister. She had taken over my room and now struck me, covering my cheek. I stumbled back only to be caught by the Crown Prince's brother. His face turned cold, seizing the Crown Princess's courtyard and assaulting her guards. Drag her away and give her 30 lashes. My cousin was terrified, crying that it wasn't intentional, while my uncle and aunt knelt to beg for mercy, but the Crown Prince ignored them, ordering my belongings to be thrown out of the room and everything restored to its original state. Next door, my cousin was being beaten. After one scream, there was silence. My aunt knelt down, begging me to intercede. Crown Princess, Yuan, she's your cousin. How can you bear to watch her be beaten to death because of you? Quickly speak to the Crown Prince and ask him to revoke his order. The Crown Prince covered my ears. Yuan, this place is tainted now, don't look for the time being. In a few days, I'll have it restored, and then you can come back. All right. I stared at the completely unrecognizable courtyard, then ran to the corner by the wall and began digging frantically. The guards came to help me, digging out a box. I just held the box. Brother Crown Prince, let's go back. This place was no longer my home. Home is where parents are, but here, there were no traces of them left. The Crown Prince, fearing I might be upset, took me out on the streets, buying me candied hawthorns, rice cakes, and all sorts of delicious treats. Truth be told, I wasn't really unhappy. Now that I had someone to protect me, even if others treated me poorly, I wouldn't let it bother me. Mother often said, one should focus on what they have, not dwell on what they've lost. A person can't go on living if they keep thinking about what's gone. So, she would always look at the letters her father sent, thinking that even though they couldn't meet often, as long as he kept her in his heart, she could feel at ease. She thought, at the very least, her father was still alive, and that was enough to keep her going. Later, when her father was trapped in Huiqing and on the verge of death, she couldn't help but rush to his rescue. Yuan, if I go now, I may never return. I'm sorry to leave you like this, but if I don't go, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. If you must hate me, then hate me. How could I possibly hate her? She went to save Father, not to abandon me. Back in the palace, when the wet nurse learned about the Qin family's actions, she was furious. They thought the young lady wouldn't be valued even after entering the palace. That's why they dared to act so recklessly. But they never expected His Highness the Crown Prince would truly stand up for her. Everyone thought I entered the Eastern Palace to await death, but no one expected that after more than a year, I'm still alive and well, and so is my Crown Prince brother. Even the Emperor didn't anticipate the Crown Prince would prove so resilient. The Empress told others I was a lucky star, claiming the Crown Prince's health had steadily improved since my arrival at the Eastern Palace. As the Crown Prince's condition did genuinely improve, this explanation gained some credence among certain circles. The Qin family has been loyal for generations. Though only an orphaned daughter remains, this girl clearly bears the mark of good fortune. With all the accumulated merits of the Qin family resting upon her, how could she not be blessed? The Crown Prince's health improved, yet the Emperor appeared displeased. He kept assigning the Crown Prince difficult tasks. Even when performed excellently, there was never praise, only remarks that this was what a Crown Prince ought to do. He even ordered the Crown Prince to solicit donations from the homes of officials. Years of war have left the national treasury depleted, and now with frequent droughts and floods, the Ministry of Revenue cannot allocate funds. It is time for all court ministers to share the nation's burdens. With just this decree, the Crown Prince was sent to demand silver from officials' households. Because of this matter, the Crown Prince ended up offending many officials. Many people whisper behind his back that he's overly ambitious and insatiably greedy. They dare not speak of the Emperor, only venting their words on the Crown Prince who's been thrust into the spotlight. The fifth prince sighed heavily during dinner, worrying about the crown prince's financial troubles. At night, I woke up my elder brother. The crown prince, brother crown prince, you can take Anand's family fortune. The nanny said all the Chin family's wealth should rightfully be mine, but it's been seized by my uncle and aunt. She also reminded me that I must reclaim it in the future. I don't care about that silver, but if it can help brother crown prince, then I should retrieve it sooner. His eyes flickered slightly as he looked at me with a sigh. Don't worry, Anand. Brother crown prince will definitely help you reclaim your family fortune, but not now. He refused to take the Chin family's silver, so I could only scrimp and save, hoping to help him accumulate more funds. He personally supervised my meals, forbidding me from eating less, saying the silver issue had been resolved and I shouldn't worry. Even the emperor didn't expect crown prince brother to raise 1 million taels of silver so quickly. After reconsidering, he ordered him to quickly go provide disaster relief and, by the way, suppress the bandits. Before crown prince brother left, he specifically sent me to the empress's palace. Mother Empress, I entrust you into your care. The empress told him to go ahead, that she would take good care of me. I stuffed a small doll into the crown prince's hands. This is the protective charm mother gave to Anand. I'm giving it to you. Remember to return it to Anand when you come back. Everyone said that doll was ugly. When I took it out to play before, Consort Chi and the second prince even scorned it for being unattractive and told me to throw it away. But that was something mother had sewn stitch by stitch with her own hands. The last thing she left me, how could I possibly throw it away? Big brother the crown prince carefully wrapped it in a handkerchief, tucked it into his robe, then patted my head. Don't worry, Yuan. Big brother will return soon and give this doll back to you completely unharmed. I tugged at his sleeve and thought for a moment. Actually, big brother's safety is what matters most. Mother always said people are more important. He patted my head again. People are important, but so is my promise to Anand. After the crown prince left, I spent my days at the empress's palace reading, eating, and counting ants. There were other princesses in the palace around my age, but I only saw them when they came with their mothers to pay respects. On ordinary days, they would avoid me when we crossed paths. The crown princess is destined for burial sacrifice. Don't get involved. Even if she doesn't become a sacrificial burial, she's still not to be trifled with. Before, the fifth prince fought the third prince over her, and the crown prince even beat the eldest daughter of the Chin family nearly to death for her sake. She's arrogant and domineering. How could we possibly provoke her? I don't know when it started, but I'd already gained a reputation for being arrogant and domineering. Only Princess Huaguang would come to see me, saying that she and her mother weren't as snobbish as others, that they alone didn't look down on me. I think what she said was wrong, but now that crown prince brother isn't here, I have no way to tell anyone else these words. I don't care if others look down on me either. Just counting the days every day, waiting for crown prince brother to return. A month later, news came from outside that crown prince brother encountered bandits putting up desperate resistance during the suppression operation, was forced off a cliff, and his fate remains unknown. As soon as the news arrived, the empress fainted, and the fifth prince grabbed the messenger eunuch by the collar, shouting that it couldn't be true. I also think it's impossible. But I've seen this situation too many times, when father was trapped in Huiqing, and mother went to save him, only to return with 2 coffins. Perhaps I truly am a harbinger of misfortune. The palace was in chaos. The emperor said the empress was too ill to manage palace affairs and had consort Qi temporarily take charge instead. She came to see Her Majesty the Empress and spoke quietly with me. Little Yuan, are you scared? I nodded blankly. I'm afraid. Afraid that crown prince brother might truly not return. Consort Qi cast a look of pity mixed with something peculiar. Poor thing. Are you afraid of being dragged along for burial sacrifices? What is she talking about? Consort Qi said. Don't be afraid, Yuan. If that day ever comes, come find me. Both I and the second prince will protect you. In this palace, we are the ones who can best shield you. Princess Huaguang also said. You see, everyone in this palace is waiting for you to die. Only the 3 of us, mother and children, are making plans for you. You should know who treats you best. They even patted my hand before leaving. Watching their retreating figures, I couldn't shake the feeling that their gait was different from before. It seemed they walked taller somehow. Princess Huaguang's gaze grew more unrestrained, no longer concealed, while Consort Qi no longer restrained her boldness. After the news of the Crown Prince's assassination came, another piece of news followed. The murder of His Highness the Crown Prince was entirely the doing of Consort Rong's family. They did it to pave the way for the third prince. With the emperor's health failing, Consort Rong grew impatient. She wanted the third prince to become the crown prince, so she had the crown prince eliminated. That was how the rumors spread outside. At first, the emperor flew into a rage, dismissing it all as nonsense and ordering an investigation into the source of the rumors. But soon, it was discovered that Consort Rong's maternal family, the Fengs, had indeed colluded with bandits, who had even paid them substantial bribes. Previously, Magistrate Liu of Yunhe County had uncovered the Feng family's systematic oppression of innocent civilians and attempted to report it, only to be obstructed. When Magistrate Liu's entire family went out, they were massacred, leaving only a daughter alive. This girl, surviving against all odds, showed remarkable resilience and actually made her way to the capital to file a lawsuit against the Feng family. At that time, she had stopped the second prince's carriage. The second prince thought she was making false accusations and was about to have her dragged away, but coincidentally, the Chief Justice of the Dali Temple happened to pass by and intervened in the matter. The Chief Justice of the Dali Temple also took the opportunity to reprimand the second prince, saying, "I know your highness cares deeply for your younger brothers, and there is brotherly affection between you, but you cannot disregard the law." The second prince went to the palace and told Consort Rong and the third prince to prepare early. As a result, Consort Rong sent someone to kill the woman, but they were caught red-handed. When the emperor received the news, he hurled a teacup that struck Consort Rong squarely on the head. "You foolish woman, when your Feng family committed crimes, instead of urging them to surrender and confess, you actually dared to send assassins to silence witnesses. I've spoiled you too much these years, making you forget your place. Not only did your Feng family harm innocent people, but you even dared to target my own son. Your audacity knows no bounds." The evidence was irrefutable, leaving Consort Rong no room for denial. Yet she insisted the Feng family had never harmed the crown prince. "Your Majesty, even if I were given 100 lives, I wouldn't dare harm the crown prince," she pleaded. The emperor roared in anger. "How dare you deny it? You've long held grievances against the crown prince, even bullying his 3-year-old consort. I tolerated your behavior for years out of consideration for your service and bearing my child, but you've only grown worse. You've truly disappointed me." No matter how loudly Consort Rong protested her innocence, the emperor still banished her to the cold palace. And the third prince was also stripped of his royal status. The emperor consoled the empress, telling her not to worry too much, saying that the crown prince would surely be protected by divine providence. The empress said she understood, but her eyes remained red from crying. 2 months passed, and the crown prince still had not returned. The Feng family had been exterminated, the third prince was exiled, and even the fifth prince seemed dispirited. In the academy, no one dared to speak anymore. At this moment, the emperor decided to appoint a new crown prince. A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. I am growing old, and this empire must eventually be passed to younger hands. The second prince suddenly became the most sought-after figure, with preparations for the grand ceremony underway throughout the palace. Meanwhile, the empress took me on a visit to the cold palace. Consort Rong had long lost her former glory, dressed in old clothes with a desolate expression. "Empress, whether you believe it or not, I resent you all, but I never laid a hand on the crown prince. I too have a son. I feared such retribution might befall my child. I still had the emperor's favor. There was no need for me to resort to such underhanded methods. But later, the favor was gone, and she was even imprisoned." The empress wore a mocking expression. "Haven't you realized yet who actually benefited from this whole conflict? If it weren't for the second prince's advice, would you have thought to silence the daughter of County Magistrate Liu?" Consort Rong froze for a moment, then, as if remembering something, suddenly burst into loud laughter. "It's her. It's actually her. But why? Her maternal family is weak, nowhere near as powerful as ours. How could she possibly have such capability? The Empress couldn't help but shake her head. That's because she has the most powerful person in the world helping her. Having said her piece, the Empress turned and walked away. When I looked back, I saw Consort Rong seem to have finally understood, bursting into bitter, mocking laughter. So all these years of favor were fake, completely fake. I was merely someone's sacrificial pawn, to crown the second prince as the crown prince. A grand ceremony was held in the palace, attended by all the officials. On that day, the second prince petitioned the emperor, requesting that I be divorced from the crown prince to spare me from the fate of being buried alive with him. Qin Yuan is the only descendant of General Qin. If the child of a loyal minister is forced to be buried alive, it will chill the hearts of the soldiers. He declared that he could relinquish his claim to the throne, but he must ensure that I would not be sacrificed in the burial rites. For a moment, the military officials in the court were deeply moved and held even greater reverence for the second prince. They all proclaimed that the crown prince's position should rightfully be his, as he was both accomplished in civil and military affairs and kind-hearted, destined to be a wise ruler. The emperor was also moved and spoke of exempting me from the burial sacrifice. As he spoke, he sighed deeply. Perhaps it was Yongren's desire for human sacrifices that diminished his virtue and led to his untimely death outside. Yongren was the name of the crown prince. Hearing these words, the empress clenched her handkerchief tightly, as if wanting to say something, but ultimately restrained herself. I knelt on the ground to receive the imperial decree, yet found the emperor's behavior utterly baffling. It was clearly his own decision to select me as the sacrificial crown princess for my elder brother the crown prince. Yet now he credits the second prince for sparing me from burial alive,
taking over noble consort Rong's former place. Noble consort Rong killed her right in the cold palace. You destroyed my entire family. You've deceived me for so many years. How bitterly you've lied to me. Noble consort Rong requested to see the emperor one last time, and the empress took her there. She now seemed like a madwoman, unable to approach the emperor, only permitted to kneel at a distance. Consort Rong screamed hysterically, "Your Majesty, you said you would only love me, but it was all lies. Your true love is that bitch consort Qi. Even if you love her, you still didn't dare offend the influence of my family and the empress's family, and you schemed to pit us against each other. You have such a cruel heart, so deceitful. You're truly a spineless coward, a gutless weakling. No wonder you had to rely on the crown prince to secure the throne. What kind of man are you?" Consort Rong's tirade left the emperor seething with rage, but alas, he was paralyzed from a stroke and couldn't utter a single word in response. After cursing, Consort Rong took her own life, leaving behind only a corpse. With the emperor paralyzed, it was naturally the crown prince who governed the court. Meanwhile, the empress attended to the emperor with utmost devotion, though not without scolding him a few times. "You were the most incompetent prince back then, yet you excelled at putting on an act. My family chose to support you precisely because they thought you had a kind heart. You relied on Yongren to please the late emperor. Yet you resented him for overshadowing you and repeatedly tried to eliminate him. He went to the military to gain experience, was saved by General Qin and his wife, and grew close to them. Yet you sought to kill General Qin and his wife, not even sparing their daughter, forcing her into the palace to be buried alive, and then pinned this vile scheme on Yongren. Consort Rong was right to scold you. You're truly spineless and ungrateful, a complete coward. Your beloved consort Qi is dead. Your favorite son is dead, and soon Yongren will expose how you colluded with foreign powers to harm loyal ministers. Even after death, you'll be scorned by thousands. The emperor, too, could offer no rebuttal, only drooling incessantly, whimpering without end. Soon, he was dead. After the crown prince ascended the throne, he issued an imperial self-criticism edict on his behalf. It admitted that he feared the Qin family's military achievements would overshadow the throne, colluded with foreign powers, and even planted spies within the Qin army, selling military deployment maps to foreign states. This led to the deaths of over half the Qin army and caused my parents, uncles, and aunts to perish on the battlefield. The crown prince, my elder brother, said that since I had already divorced him, he granted me the title of princess, hoping I could live a life of joy and peace. The Qin residence was converted into a princess's manor. My uncle and aunt's entire family was expelled, and all the wealth they had taken was forced to be returned. They colluded with the second prince, aiding him in many wicked deeds, and were ultimately exiled to the northern deserts. I became the most noble princess of Great Jew. No longer fearing being dragged to be buried alive, Princess Huaguang, having lost both her mother and brother, became the least favored princess, even stripped of her title. When she saw me, her face twisted with rage. Why, when my mother and I have treated you so well, must you still side with the crown prince and refuse to help my second brother? I merely looked at her indifferently. I'm not a fool. Who treats me well and who doesn't? Do you think I can't tell? They simply want to use me to win over the remaining Qin family troops to their side. First, the emperor orders the crown prince to drag me into this sacrificial burial. Then the second prince comes to my rescue. Also the good reputation falls to the second prince, making the Qin army loyal to him while turning them against the crown prince. Even though I was young, I could see they were only using me. My parents had said that the Qin army was meant to protect the nation and its people. It was the sword of the Great Jew, not a tool for their power struggles. Besides, the opportunity was right in front of you. That doll contained the Qin army's tiger tally. But you thought it was ugly and refused to take it. Princess Huaguang had also seen that doll. The thought that she had scorned such an opportunity made her even angrier, and she lunged at me as if to kill, but she was restrained by the guards and soon demoted to a commoner. As she left, she shouted that I too would meet a terrible end. The crown prince has been poisoned for so many years, his body is already hollowed out. He won't live much longer. How long do you think he can still protect you? Huaguang wasn't wrong. After the crown prince ascended the throne, he quickly drafted an imperial edict in front of all civil and military officials, declaring that after his death, the throne would be passed to the fifth prince, Yongcheng. Thus, while ruling as emperor, he personally took charge of educating the fifth prince. The court officials had initially intended to advise him to expand his harem and produce heirs early, but during a morning court session, he suddenly coughed up blood. The imperial physicians revealed he had been poisoned for years and his body could no longer endure. His current ability to function was solely due to consuming stimulant elixirs that forcibly boosted his energy, essentially borrowing against his lifespan to maintain the stamina needed for state affairs. The courtiers were astonished to hear that he had been poisoned for over a decade. How ruthless the late emperor was. So His Majesty wasn't ill, he was poisoned. The former emperor became the late emperor, and everyone knew it was he who had administered the poison. He clearly relied on having a good son to seize the throne, yet he disliked this son and tried to poison him when he was still young. Is this even human behavior? The courtiers no longer opposed and instead devoted themselves wholeheartedly to assisting, while also taking the opportunity to mentor the fifth prince. Yongcheng was swamped with work, not even having time to complain. The queen searched everywhere for renowned physicians, hoping to save the emperor, but his life still slowly reached its end. I still prefer to call him Crown Prince Brother. Before he left, he settled all his affairs and finally called me to his side. Your parents once saved my life. The first time I saw you, I thought about protecting you well, ensuring your lifelong peace and happiness. I'm sorry, Yuan, I couldn't protect your parents. I shook my head desperately. No, it's not your fault. He was clearly a victim too. He patted my head and said, when I was young, I once met a Taoist priest who told me I wouldn't live past 25. If I wanted to live a long life, I should follow him to cultivate the Tao. At the time, my imperial grandfather dismissed it as nonsense and couldn't bear to part with me, so he drove the man away. Looking back now, perhaps I really had the talent for cultivation. In my next life, I'll cultivate the Tao and come back to see you, little Yuan. You must be well, so your crown prince brother can rest easy. I tearfully agreed, promising I would be well. My life was protected by my crown prince brother. Since he wanted me to be well, I shall be well. After the crown prince brother left, I wept bitterly and spent 10 years accompanying the Empress Dowager until I saw her off. She said she was going to find the crown prince brother, that she was sorry for this eldest son of hers, that she shouldn't have used him years ago to win over the late emperor and the current emperor. Had she not done these things, she wouldn't have aroused the emperor's jealousy and hatred, and perhaps the crown prince brother would still be alive and well today. And I, disregarding Yongcheng's objections, began to wander far and wide. Finally, after several years, I encountered a Taoist priest. He said I had the destiny for immortality and asked if I wished to cultivate the Tao. Having witnessed the skills he demonstrated, I agreed. If I cultivate immortality, perhaps in a few decades I might meet the reincarnation of my elder brother, the crown prince. Next time, I'll be the one to protect him properly.